This is an awesome collection by Marcus Magnusson called Invisible Friends. It got really popular. You would pay about 7 ETH for one of those invisible friends, which is around 20,000 US dollars. The graphics are super cool, giving us this nice hipster feeling. But what makes this collection successful are the animations, because they are just on point. Really professional. So what you can expect today, we're gonna dive into rigging and animating a 3D character in Blender. Yes, it's gonna be an invisible friend in 3D.
No way!
Fasten your seatbelts and let's go. Let me introduce you to our invisible friend 3D model that we're gonna rig today. Let's switch to solid mode. I will just quickly show you what we have over here. So first we have a head, then we have the glasses, the nerd glasses. And then there's a separate model of our turtleneck, my favorite piece of clothing as always. Then we have the trousers, shoes, and of course, the hands. I will also toggle the X-ray, so now we can see through the models. Pick the collection where you want the armature to be put. Now Shift A, pick the armature and add a single bone. We can see that we got our first bone added. Having the bone selected, press G, Z, and then move it down towards the waist of our model, just like this. At this point, we can also press number 1 to move to the front view. Then just zoom in, press tab to get to the edit mode of the armature. So now we can actually start playing with the bones. Select this little circle over here. That is the very end of our first bone. Then press E to extrude. You should see a first bone created. I will leave the very first bone just over here as it's gonna be our hip bone. Then I will pick again the very first joint over here and then press E again to extrude it, lock it in the Z axis and just pull it all over just to around this position. Press E to extrude again, lock it in the Z axis so you can just move it up and down and then place it somewhere around the place of the actual head, but obviously we have an invisible heads of our invisible friends, so let's just leave it somewhere over here. And then pick the joint over here again, press E to extrude, and this time we're gonna drag it to the very right side towards the shoulders, and we're gonna place it around this place. Then I will left click on the whole bone like this so it's selected, press Alt P, and then choose the disconnect bone. Now the bone is disconnected, so if we press G, we can freely move it around, but we can still see that there is this little string that is being connected to this joint over here. So I will press X to move in the X-axis and then we just place it right where the arm starts. And we can also just move it just a little bit down. So G, Z, and then just drag it down like this. Pick the last joint of our arm bone, again extrude, then X, and then just drag it somewhat to the place of the wrist. At this point, we're gonna move to the top view by pressing 7. And now we'll be adding the bones for our hand. Again, extrude, then X, and just drag it to the middle of our hand. Then extrude again. This time we'll just make a really little bone around this size. Choose it. Again, press Alt P, we did that before, and disconnect the bone. Press G and then move it all over to this very start of our finger. And the nice part about the bones is that it still behaves as any other mesh, so we can press S for scale and then just actually make it a little bigger. So I'm just gonna scale it just a little bit to like this. Then press G and move it just towards the end of our fingers. Now we will pick the last joint, press EX and just create another joint to this position. Again, E for extrude, X, and just move it towards the end of our finger to around this position. What we can also do now is select all the bones, then press Shift D to duplicate, and you can see that we just got another pair of joints for our middle finger that is still being connected to the very bone that is controlling the hands. So then press Y to move in the Y-axis and just also align it with the finger in the middle. And guess what? We're gonna press Shift D again and then Y to lock it in the Y-axis and finish the very last finger. Then we're gonna do Shift D again. This time we're gonna move it towards the thumb. Then press R to rotate. Type 90 on your numpad. Enter. G, move it. And our thumb is also ready. We're just gonna quickly check how it looks in the front view. So press 1. You can see that the bones are somehow in the middle of our mesh, but of course we can also adjust it, but we'll leave it like this. We're gonna start from the bone for our hip, so that one is just over here. Let's select its end joint, press E to extrude, then Z to move it towards, the bottom, like this. Select it, Alt P, we did this before, disconnect the bone, G and move it. So it starts from around the waist of our model, so that's around here. Again, we're gonna scale it a little bit, so let's go with S to scale, and then just make it around this size, and G to move, Z, and then move it down to the bottom. Select the last joint, E to extrude, and again we're gonna lock it in the Z-axis, and we're gonna drag it all the way down to the point where the shoe starts. Now let's select both of our leg bones, holding Shift, click on both, and because we really want to make it and have it perfect, we're gonna press G, X, and now really try to align it into the very middle of our pants. So I believe it's around this position. And it's time to move to the side view. So if you press 3, we're gonna see it from the side. Of course, we are kind of, covered with the background. So I can also just turn it off. So let's just go to the layers, see the background, and just hide it from the viewport like this. And now if I press 3, we just have our model very clear and crisp. We can see that the bones for our leg are pretty aligned with the pants, so we don't really need to do any adjustments there. But we will finish the last joint for our foot. So let's just select that last joint, press E, lock it in the Y-axis, and drag it forward, and let's end around this place over here. That's enough. So our basic structure of the bones for the rigging is almost done. Now we're gonna proceed to the naming part, which is really important as well. So I will kindly move to the front view, starting from the very top. Just click on that bone, press F2, and then name it a head. You can also see that the name is changing here, so you can also just change it over here. So this is gonna be our spine, F2, spine. Then the very first bone that we added is the main one. Naturally, we actually don't have such bone in our body, but this one will control the whole armature, you will see. Now the naming will be a little more interesting. So I'm gonna select the left hip. Yes, it's the left one, even though we see it on the right side. So now we're gonna press F2, name it hip.L to assign it its position that it's on the left. So it's gonna be .L. We're gonna do the same with the leg bones over here as well. So let's just pick the upper one, F2. We're gonna name it upper leg.L. This one will be the bottom leg.L. Moving upwards, we're gonna have the arm. So this is gonna be the upper arm.L. F2 lower arm.L. It's gonna be the arm.L. Now let's go to the top view, pressing 7, moving into our hands. The naming here will be a little obscure, but let's just do it for the sake of having it complete, and you will see it's very important. So let's just start with the very left finger, F2. I'm gonna name it a left number 1 finger.L. Select its successor, F2 left 2 finger.L. Then we're gonna go with left 3 finger.L. Then we're gonna proceed with the middle. So this one will be the middle 1 finger.L. middle 2 finger dot L and middle 3 dot finger dot L. And yes, you can guess the naming of the right finger over here. F2 right 1 finger dot L, right 2 finger dot L, and yes, right 3 finger dot L. Finally coming down to the thumb. That's gonna be easy, so that's F2 thumb 1 finger dot L, thumb 2 finger dot L. We are getting good at this. F2, finally thumb 3 finger dot L. So we are done with the hand. Number 3 on your numpad to the side view, moving down, and we're gonna name the our foot. So it's gonna be F2 foot dot L. To create the inverse kinematics for our leg, we're gonna start with bending the knees. So let's just select the lower bone over here. I actually name it bottom. Press R to rotate and then just tilt it a little to the front, so the knee would be pointing towards the front. Then we're gonna select this joint over here, press E and extrude it again to the front. You can also lock it in the y-axis, so just have it like this. The size doesn't really matter. Then select that whole bone, press Alt P, and then choose the clear parent option. Then press G and we can just move it somewhere to the front. So having this bone over here is important for the inverse kinematics to know where the front over the knee is. So that's what we're gonna do. And also uncheck the deform. Then there is another thing that we have to do. So let's select the joint over here. Again, we're gonna extrude it, but this time, yes, to the opposite direction, to the back. We can also just lock it in the y-axis to have it straight and make it any size you want, like this. Again, we will select the whole bone, Alt P, and then clear the parent, but this time we will actually leave it where it is, and we will also uncheck the deform. Now we're gonna rename this bone. So again, having selected F2, we're gonna name it IK as inverse kinematics. We're gonna do leg target dot L in the very same fashion as we did before. Then we're gonna choose this extended knee direction, F2 IK leg pole dot L. Before adding the modifiers, let's just go to the front view by pressing 1. Select the whole armature or all the bones with the A on your keyboard. Press Shift N and then choose View Axis. This step is very important to align the direction of bones with the front view, and you will see how it will pay off later on to do this step, because it's very, very important when we're gonna do the animation, and it will also save our time. Let's get back to the side view, pressing 3, and now we're gonna switch to the pose mode. The pose mode allows us to move the bones around. So now if I have, let's say, this lower leg selected, I can press G and then just move it all around. But we are not done with the inverse kinematics yet, so let's just stay focused. So I have that bottom leg selected. We're gonna go to bone constraints and we're gonna add inverse kinematics. Let's go and change the chain length to number 2. Then pick the target. So first we'll get the drop. Just select the armature. So you're gonna have the armature selected over here. And then the bone. Yes, the bone gonna be the IK target. Then we will use the eyedropper for the pole target. So again, we're gonna select the armature. And then we're gonna choose the bone, which will be IK pole leg. Yes. You can see that now it's pointing towards a different angle. So let's change the pole angle to 90. And voila. And now when I choose our control bone over here and then press G and move it around, you can see how it bends with the movement. How awesome is that? Alright, but we are not done yet. Let's select the foot, then go to bone properties, uncheck the inherit rotation, get back to constraints, and give it a copy rotation. As a target, we're gonna use the armature again, and the bone will be IK leg target.L. And then we will change the target from world space to local space. The same with the owner, just choose the local space as well. Now when I'm gonna move the control bone over here, you can see that in the z-axis, it's moving in a very correct way. But when we're gonna rotate it in the x-axis, you can see that it's somehow, moving exactly to the opposite. So to fix this, just gonna take that foot again, and then we're gonna invert the x and y axis, take the control bone, and now I'm gonna try to rotate it all around. So you can see that it just rotates exactly with it, both in the x-axis and also y-axis. So the inverse kinematics for our leg is done. Don't you think that we are missing some bones here on the right side of our character? Well, yes, of course. So I'm gonna switch to the edit mode. A to select everything. Then we're gonna press F3. And then we're gonna start typing symmetrize. That's the very first option that just pops here. And then just pick that one. And you can see that we got all the missing bones. And it's now just beautiful. Okay. If we get back to the pose mode and just, get the main bone over here and press G, you can see how, yes, the knees are bending very, very nicely. So that's the inverse kinematics in work. Switch to the object mode. Now we're gonna select the hands. Holding shift, I will also pick the top and also the pants. And the very last object that I will pick will be the armature. So just hold shift and select the armature like this. Remember, and make sure that you select the armature as the last object. Alright, then we're gonna go over here and select the pose mode. At this point, we're gonna press A to select all the bones, then Ctrl P and choose the option with automatic weights. Voila. Now, when I'm going to take the main bone as we did before and press G, you can see that the whole body, both with the hands and basically the objects that we selected, is moving with it. How awesome is that? To get our head and glasses moving with the armature, we're gonna go back to the object mode. We're gonna select the head. Holding shift, I will pick the glasses. And again, lastly, we're gonna pick the armature. Go to pose mode. But this time, we will pick only the head bone. Press Ctrl P on your keyboard and choose the option that says bone. And now let's pick the main bone again, press G, and now you can see that if we move it around, the whole head and also the glasses is moving with it. The reason that we are seeing the funny, movements of the glasses is that because we have the modifier of the mirror over there that is not applied, but that can be very easily fixed. But the whole body is moving. And last, we also need to connect our shoes. So let's go to object mode again. I'm gonna select the very first shoe over here. Then the armature holding shift. Back to the pose mode. This time I will pick the foot bone, Ctrl P, and then choose the bone again. Get back to object mode, pick the other shoe, then shift holding and pick the armature, going back to the pose mode. This time we're gonna pick the other leg, Ctrl P, and then choose the bone again. And ladies and gentlemen, now we're gonna take the control bone of our legs. And now when we're gonna move it all around, we can see that both the leg and also, yes, the shoe is moving with it. Let's go to animation tab, click to the left window over here and then press 0 to get the view from the camera. Then in the window over here, we're gonna press Ctrl 3 to get the side view, but on the very opposite side. Then we're gonna move our frame to the frame number 1. What we're gonna essentially do right now will be creating the keyframes for each of those poses in a walking cycle. So the very first frame will be the contact. Okay, so I'm gonna grab the control bone of the right leg. Then I'm gonna press G and move it just like this. So it just brings it forward. And I'm going to take the left leg, G, and move it just like this towards the back. Then let's pick the right leg again. Press R to rotate and angle the foot just like in the contact pose. So it's just gonna be little angled like this. And the same we'll do with the left leg. R, rotate and just angle it like this. Press G and then just, get it to the position where it would also make the contact with the floor. Obviously the character right now is kind of flying in the air, so you can see that there is still a space between the floor and also the foot. So let's Ctrl 3 to the side view again, A to select everything, G, Z, and then just move it down so you will just make the contact with the surface. So it's around this position. Finish our very first pose. Let's grab the left, holding shift the right foot as well as the main bone. Then press I and choose location and rotation. This way we created our first keyframe for these 3 bones. The next pose after contact is down. First of all, we need to advance the frame number, so now we're gonna go to 5. Select the right leg, then press Alt R to reset the rotation of our armature. So this way we got it to the original position. Then G to move it around and then place it just a little under of the body like this. Then select the left leg, move it just a little backwards to create the next pose like this. We can also rotate it and just rotate that just a little back, G, and make it just like this. The second pose was called down. So let's select the main bone, press G, Z, and then just, pull it a little bit down, not really much, because otherwise then we will get a very bumpy walking, but just a little will do fine. Again, select the main, holding shift left and also right foot. So we got all the bones selected, press I and pick location and rotation. And voila, we got another keyframe here at the frame number 5. If you just move a little back, we can see that it's now kind of moving already. Our next keyframe is going to be the pass pose, the red one over here. When the legs kind of, pass each other, the gap between each keyframes will be 4. So this time we're gonna advance to number 9. Select the right flag, press Alt R and Alt G. So now we got it moved to the also original position. Select the left leg, press R to rotate the foot even more like this, G, and bring the leg forward. So it's gonna cross the other leg exactly as in the pose picture. Having that left leg still selected, I'm gonna hold shift and also select the other leg, I, and make a location and rotation keyframe of those 2 bones. Then select the main bone. These are its keyframes. I'm gonna select the very first ones, Ctrl C, and then just pass it with Ctrl V. You can see that it just moves a little up, but as we can see on this picture over here, it's just slightly higher than the very first pose. So we will just press G, Z, and move it just a little higher than from its original position, I, and pick the location and rotation, or in this case, even a location would do fine. Just to quickly check how it looks, you can see that if we advance the frames, the walking cycle is there kind of already. The next pose is called up. That's when the character is at the highest point. 9 plus 4 equals 13, so we're gonna advance our frame to number 13. This time we will start with the left leg, so let's just select it. Press Ctrl R to reset its rotation, then press G to move it forward, and let's just place it somewhere around this place. So it's just in the front. Then select the right leg, G, move it behind it, R to rotate and rotate it so the very top of the shoe is touching the ground. Holding shift, select the other leg, I again, and make the keyframe in location and rotation. Then select the main bone, G to move it around, Z to lock in the Z axis and move it up. Then press I and make a keyframe in location and rotation. Our last pose is contact. Yes, it's the same one as the first one, but with the legs flipped. Let's advance the frame number to 17. This time, instead of positioning each of the leg and the height as we did for the poses before, we're gonna use Blender Magic. Remember when we did all that setting up of the armature? Because now it's gonna pay off. So let's select the main bone, then both of the legs holding shift. Then I will select all the keyframes here on the very first frame, the first contact pose. And then just press Ctrl Shift V. And this way, we got those keyframes passed into here, but in reverse. So let's check how the very first frame looks, and then switch to the 17, and you can see how both of the legs just got switched. And that's exactly what we needed. Let's quickly go through the animation. So what we got over here is the very first half of the walk. Now what we need is to get the keyframes with the same set of poses, but just with the legs flipped to have the whole walking loop complete. At the frame number 17, we already have the very first pose for the next half of the walking loop. Let's advance the frame number to 21. And what we need now is to get the down pose, but just with the legs flipped. And we already know how to get those keyframes with Blender Magic, right? Because that pose is stored just over here at the frame number 5. So I'm gonna copy it, Ctrl C, and then just paste it back to the frame number 21 with Ctrl Shift V. Again, we copy the same keyframes, but just with the reverse. Advance the frame number to 25. And again, we know that the next pose is stored just over here at the frame number 9. So I'm just gonna copy it, Ctrl C and Ctrl Shift V. Then we're gonna advance to frame number 29. Yes, the next set of keyframes of the next pose are stored in here. The frame 13, Ctrl C and Ctrl Shift V again. And the very last keyframe of ours is going to be at the frame 33. And it's going to be the very first pose that we created. So that's those keyframes over here. Ctrl C. And this time just pass it normally. So let's just Ctrl V. And now let's check the whole animation loop from the beginning. And this is how its render looks like. I'm in the front view. Let's change the frame number to 1. Now I will switch on the mirroring. That's very important because right now we're gonna bend the fingers, so it's gonna happen on both sides. So just to show you, just remember to have the X-ray as well. Now I'm gonna select the bones over here, R, and just bend it like this. And you can see that it's bending on both sides. How awesome is that? So let's just zoom in. Now we're gonna select the bones in the middle, R for rotation, and again just bend it like this. Then we're gonna pick both bones, R for rotation, and just bend it again. You might have noticed those sharp edges. Even though we did the smooth shading, you still can see the polygons. So this is definitely the case that can happen to you after applying the armature and then bending the bones. So now I'm going to the object mode. We'll select the hands and go to the modifiers. The problem with sharp edges is because the armature modifier is applied after the subdivision surface. So what we need to do is just move this above the modifier of subdivision. And the problem with sharp edges is fixed. Select the armature and switch to pose mode. Now let's switch to the side view, Control number 3, and we're gonna bend the thumb. Gonna select the last joint, R to rotate, and just bend it down like this. And then select the middle, R for rotation, and just bend it again. Then select the very first bone and rotate and bend it just down like this. Then head to the top view by pressing 7. I'm gonna select the rest of the bones. The same on the other side, holding shift, just select those and also the thumb. Now press I and choose the location and rotation. This way we got the hands locked in this position for the entire animation. I'm still on the very first frame, having the mirroring on. Let's select the upper arm, R to rotate, Just rotate it inwards. So we're gonna just bend our hands a little bit like this. We can also do that with the lower arm. So just pick that one and just rotate slightly inwards. Let's say like this. Select also both of the lower arms holding shift and press I to create the keyframe in location and rotation to also lock this position for the lower arm. Now Control 3 to the side view, select the upper arm. This time it's the one on the right. Okay, make sure to turn off the mirroring, we don't need that anymore. When the right leg is in the front, the right hand is also in the front. So let's just press R to rotate and move our hands forward. We're gonna go and select the left arm. Again, we'll get to the side view, Control 3, R for rotation, and just rotate it to the back. Select the other arm holding Shift, I, and make a keyframe in location and rotation. Let's just quickly find out when the next contact pose is. So I'm gonna pick the main bone, and here we can see all its keyframes. And I believe that the next contact pose that is right in the middle is at the frame number 17. So we're gonna also change the frame cursor to that place. Select both of the upper arm bones. Now we have its keyframes over here. So I'm just gonna select it, Control C, and again blend your magic, Control Shift V. And as you can see, our hand just got flipped. Okay, let's just quickly see how it looks from the frame number 1. We can see that our hands are just moving exactly as we would expect in the walking cycle. Then we're gonna select the very first keyframes, Control C, and pass it to the frame number 33, which is the very end of our animation loop. So just pass it with normal Control V, and let's check the whole loop from the very first frame again. And you can see that the hands are moving exactly as we would expect. The very last thing we're gonna do is select everything by pressing A, then just select all the keyframes, right click, go to the interpolation mode and choose linear. So this way the whole movement will be just continuous without any speeding up and slowing down in between of the keyframes. Okay, this is our animation loop in action. When we connect the armature with our meshes with the automatic weights, sometimes when we actually bend the bones, it might look a little deformed. I will show you quickly how to fix these things. We can obviously see that the right leg over here is really strangely deformed. So let's just have the armature selected, then holding Shift, I will select the pants. Then from the object mode, I will switch to weight paint. Let's just zoom in, hold Control on your keyboard and left click on the upper right leg. This way we're gonna pick this bone and we can see that the paint or the strength where it bends and where it influences the vertices are just at this place where it's orange, and where it's blue there is no actual influence from the bone. So what we're gonna do is having the add brush over here and just paint it over the leg. You can see that now the leg looks much better, and that's because we just added the weights where we need it. In case if we just did too much of the weights at some point, we just switch from add to subtract, and now we can just clean it up a little bit over here so it doesn't influence that much of the pants over here. So we can just also use that subtract to clean it up when we kind of miss the brushing. And this is our final render. First thing we need to do is connect other assets to the armature. I'm at the frame number 0, and in pose mode, select the whole armature by pressing A, Alt R and Alt G to just get to the very original position of the whole armature. You can also create a keyframe here at the frame 0 for this position. So we're just gonna press I and go with location and rotation. The next time we want to get to this position, we don't need to press the Ctrl R and Ctrl G, but we can just go to the frame number 0 and we will see the original position of the armature. Switch back to object mode. Let's starting with head accessory. I will turn off the beanie, turn on the baseball cap, select it, then select the armature holding Shift, get back to pose mode, select just the head bone, Ctrl P and select the bone. Again, back to object mode, turn off the baseball cap, turn on the head, select that one, select the armature, go to pose mode, select that head bone, Ctrl P, and choose bone again. Back to object mode, we'll move on to the other accessories. So I will turn on the nerd glasses, turn on the white glasses, shift, holding, select the armature, pose mode, select the head bone again, Ctrl P and choose the bone. Back to object mode, turn off the white glasses and having the eye patch on, select that one, shift, holding and select the armature, pose mode again. That bone is already selected, the head one, and Ctrl P and bone again. So now just to check it up, we're gonna move the main bone. Let's say this down, you can see that both the new two accessories are moving with the armature. All new accessories are connected to the armature. Now we'll proceed with the top and the pants. So I'm just gonna open the pants, hide the one that we already have there, and yes, open the green one. The same will do with the top, so I'll just hide the top number 1 and show the top number 2. Get to the object mode, pick the new top and the new pants, holding shift. Lastly, select the armature, go to the pose mode, select A for the whole skeleton, Ctrl P, and this time choose with automatic weights, basically as we did at the beginning with the previous assets. Again, we can just check if it works, just select that main bone, and just move it up, and you can see that both yes, the new shirt and the pants are bending with it. Head to object mode, hide the pants number 2, open the pants number 3, hide the top 2, show the top number 3, select that one, then the other, and the armature as well. Pose mode again, A, and then with automatic weights. This is actually my favorite combination, the white sweatshirt and pinky shorts. So this way we just got connecting the pants and the top. And last we need to connect our shoes. So let's go to the shoes over here, hide the shoes number 1, show the shoes number 2, select the left one or the right one actually, armature, pose mode again, select the right bone of the foot, Ctrl P and choose the bone. Get back to object mode, select the other shoe, shift, click on the armature, pose mode, select that bone, Ctrl P and bone again. Just to quickly check how it works, you're just gonna move this, like over here you can see that the flip-flops are moving with it. So again to object mode, hide the shoes number 2, show the last ones, the big boots, my most favorite one, select the one, armature, pose mode, select that foot, Ctrl P and choose the bone, get back to object mode, select the other, holding shift, armature, again pose mode, select the other foot, Ctrl P and bone, and we are done with connecting the new assets to the armature, meaning that if we actually switch to any other frame, we can see that the animation is still being applied, and that's what we actually want and need for generating the combinations. Before the generation process, we need to turn the visibility of all the assets on, creating a big mess in the scene. Now let's go to the Raptor. First of all, we're gonna click on the Analyze scene, and now we can see all the attributes and their traits. There is 243 unique combinations of those traits. We can leave the rarity as it is. Moving forward, what interests us in the settings is the animation settings, and just to remind ourselves, if we go to the pose mode, we can pick the main bone or select all the bones to see the keyframes of the animation, and we can see that the last keyframe of our animation loop is number 33, and that's gonna be the number that we're gonna put into the animation settings over here. So let's just type in 33. And because our output is going to be the MP4 video, we don't need to export the GLB file, so I will just uncheck those two settings. And just before the generation, I recommend to save the blend file just as a backup, and let's generate. The generation of 243 unique combinations is done. Now when I'm gonna move the frame number, I'm gonna see the very first combination. And as I advance the frame, I'm gonna see different combinations. You can see that we got 7,776 frames generated. So in every 32 frames, there's a new combination and it's animation frames. If we scroll further down in the RAPTOR, there is a render settings that allows us to batch render the animations. To change the file format and the file path of the output, let's go to Output Properties, find the Output section. Okay, and here we can pick the folder where the combinations will be exported to. What is important is the file format, so I will switch to the FFmpeg video, then open the encoding. And in here, just change from Matroshka to MPEG-4. So this way we'll get the MP4 video files. And in here, we can also change the quality. So I would go with the high quality. Then head back to the scene where the RAPTOR is. Scroll down. You can see that we have the MP4 file format over here, as well as the output path. We can also choose the start and the end of the combination. So that's the batching. We can just make 10 at a time, or we can just render the whole entire collection as well. I'm going to render just 6 combinations. So I'll just put number 6 to the end of the combination. And let's render. And this is the result of the batch render. We got 6 separate animation loops. And as usual, we also got the metadata for each of the generated combination, altogether of 243 JSON files. And this is our 6 invisible friends that we rendered. It wasn't that much of the pain, right? Blender is just awesome, you know? By the way, you can download the whole scene with the invisible friend that we just did down in the description. You're gonna be my first invisible friend if you hit the subscribe button. Thank you very much. Thang and
Michael
are out.